It's week 20, the NFL Divisional round. 8 teams remain, 8 excellent offenses, plenty of stars, and for us to build our NFL DFS cash and GPP lineup on FanDuel, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Wow, a wild card round, Michael. And if we could pat both of each other on the back against the spread, we were 5-1 last week and so close to being 6-0.
Yeah, and a little bit bummer what caused that 6-0. That Raider team tried to shoot itself in the foot all the way to the very end, and then that last play could have very well been 6-0 and really some blowouts. I think the teams that won deserve to be there.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders were down by 7. They had it inside the 10 first down, 4 downs, one that they had the clock. So at least 3 downs to score a touchdown. They score that touchdown, we're guaranteed to win against the spread, because if it goes to overtime, then they don't kick the extra point. It's a 6.5 point spread. But let's just rejoice in the 5 others. Congratulations on your Raiders. They had so much adversity this year, and to make it as far as they did, pretty darn good. Much better than my Seahawks, who just fired their defensive coordinator today as they look to rebuild. But forget about that. How about let's talk divisional playoff round? And I'm really excited, Michael, about this cash and GPP lineup on FanDuel. So let's get right to it.
All right, Eric, here we are. And as you know, we usually like to start with running back. Now let's click on running back and see what our options are. Clearly, most expensive running back is Derrick Henry, coming off of injury.
He's back.
He is back. He is back, and I expect he'll have to have an impact on this game in order for them to take care of business against Cincinnati. But at $9,000 coming off injury, I think he's too expensive, even though Cincinnati is very vulnerable against the run. What do you think?
Yeah, especially in cash where you want that high floor. I mean, this is Derrick Henry's time. This is usually when the defenses get tired and he just gets stronger and stronger as the game goes along, and he's going to be fresh. It's just scary. We haven't seen him. We're not clear if he's on a pitch count. I'm okay if you want to go Henry in GPP, but just not comfortable in cash.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, he's a little less expensive than you might otherwise expect, except for what Eric just mentioned. I think Mixon he's going up against a team that's tough against running backs. And while I'm tempted to go with Aaron Jones, I just feel like there's a couple of bargains that have really high floors. And so McKinnon facing Buffalo he's really become the guy in Kansas City.
So the biggest question mark here, Michael, is what is the health of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was out last week? And you love the fact that he had 19 touches in Clyde Edwards-Helaire's absence. So assuming that Edwards-Helaire is out, I mean, again, the game environment here is so darn good. Kansas City is 28.5 implied total, home favorite. Game script wise, this is going to be a big shootout, and I want the guy to be a part of it. And 6,000 is such a paltry price. If Edwards-Helaire does play, how about for $300 less? How about Cam Akers? Cam Akers is a guy who is officially back remember, he was the starter from the beginning of the season, and that Darrell Henderson is out. His only competition is Sonny Michel, and he had 18 touches last week. Now, I don't like his matchup, right? He plays the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are very good against the run, but a guy that's a bell cow, and both you and I are very high on this Ram team. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say they pull off the upset. It's not a huge upset. I think they're only 2-point dogs, but an upset over the Tampa Bay Bucs here, Michael.
Yeah, I think depending on what Matthew Stafford, how he performs. But yeah, Cam Akers, if you watch that game, he looked phenomenal. Yeah, the only downside there is going up against Tampa Bay's run, which hasn't been quite as strong the last few games. So who do we like if we for next?
So for now, I'm going to put Jerick McKinnon in there. But again, that is conditional on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Speaking of conditional, it's all about this guy. It's all about Leonard Fournette. So you can read in the comments how Bruce Arians says, look, he still has not been able to reach his top speed. And until he is able to do that, he ain't starting him. Assuming that Leonard Fournette is out, then you might say, well, what about Ronald Jones? Ronald Jones didn't play last week either. So it was really a two-headed monster between Keyshawn Vaughn and Gio Bernard. So you got to decide, well, which one of those two guys do I really want? Vaughn is the guy who's going to likely get more carries. He out-carried Gio Bernard, I think it was 17 to 15. But it is, in fact, Gio Bernard who's the guy who is going to get involved more in the passing game. And if Ronald Jones does turn out to play or get some action, Michael, I think he's going to take more away from Keyshawn Vaughn and not Gio Bernard. And the last thing I would say, look how well Gio Bernard did in a game that the Bucs were ahead the entire game. If this is closer or the Rams get ahead, I think the emphasis on the pass and Gio Bernard is even going to be more. And the last thing I say, don't forget, Antonio Brown is gone. Chris Godwin is gone. So if you believe the Bucs are going to put points up, somebody's got to get it. And Bernard is a great candidate, especially if Fournette and Jones are out.
Yeah, I think both of us have talked about how we just mentioned it. If Matthew Stafford is right, the Bucs are going to be in for it in this game. That means they're going to probably have to throw the ball, and Tom Brady's going to need to dump the ball off to his running back. And I think Giovanni Bernard will be that person.
So what's interesting about the lineup that we have put together so far is it's conditional on some injuries, but we've got guys with great game environments, home favorites, and guys that with very high implied totals. The Bucs are 25 implied total, and Kansas City's 28.5. And by saving so much money on these two guys, Michael, we can really go spin crazy at wide receiver.
Yeah, and so that's what we're going to do, right? I think we're going to go with the number one guy here, Cooper Kupp, because of the Tampa Bay Buccaneer matchup. Fortunately for him, OBJ opened things up. The Cardinals tried to put basically blanket Kupp, which opened up things for OBJ. I think that's just not going to be possible this week. And so Cooper Kupp's going to get his more traditional workload, although we saw he still even got a pretty good workload and got in the end zone this last week against the Cardinals.
Yeah, Kupp is just amazing in a bad game. In fact, it was the second worst game all year, folks. Actually, third worst. I see one other game in there. And the guy is about as automatic as you can get. And for a cash game where you want that high floor, and because he had that bad game, Michael, we actually got a $500 discount on Cooper Kupp. He was $10,000 last week. So all of a sudden, 9,500 seems somewhat reasonable. Talk to me about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. We know that they do a much better job against the run than the pass. But if we look at their cornerbacks, is there anyone that you fear on this Buccaneer defense that you think that can shut Kupp down?
Oh, definitely not. And then they really haven't been able to do that all season. I don't think that Kupp really has any single defensive back that I would be concerned about. He's got good size. He runs great routes. He's got those crazy hands and just great mental connection with Stafford. The way to kind of slow him down is double cover so that Stafford will go elsewhere. But that's all you accomplish by that, because there are other targets for Stafford. So I see, Stafford going to Kupp as he has comfortably done all season long.
All right. Well, I will see your Kupp. And I am going to go, I'm going to go with a guy who I have just as much of a confidence in, Devontae Adams. Michael, this guy is just so good. And come playoff time, He is just so dangerous. You talked about the connection that Stafford has with Kupp. How about the connection with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams? And look who he faces. He faces a San Francisco 49er team who he just torched at the earlier part of this year, scored 25 FanDuel points.
Yeah, and they're coming off the bye, so they're healthy. They've had a chance to game plan. They're going to need to get the ball to Adams. You know they will make sure that there are gimmick plays to get there. He's got as high a floor as anyone, rivaling Cooper Kupp. And if we can afford him, which we are able to do because of the running back choices that we have, then let's put him in the lineup.
Yeah, and on FanDuel, this is true for Cooper Kupp as well. It's so great to have wide receivers who have great touchdown equity. I cannot tell you, if you just watch the Packer game, Aaron Rodgers just looks in his direction all the time around the end zone. Even around the goal line, they'll throw him the ball. So as you can see, not counting last week, look what he's done as far as receiving touchdowns over the previous few games. So very impressive. So, all right. So we just spent a lot of money on wide receivers. So I'm going to save a little bit of money. And a guy who really burned us last week. Let's just be honest. It's T. Higgins. But the same reasons we liked him last week, and now I think his price even dropped a little bit, we still like him this week. I mean, last week it was the Jamar Chase Uzomah show. I mean, those guys got 15 catches for 180 yards, which didn't leave much in a game that the Bengals led almost the entire game against the Raiders, so they ran the ball a lot. I don't think that is going to be the case this week against a Titans team that you attack in the air much better than on the ground. So I think there is going to be a big pie, and I think T. Higgins is going to get his share this week.
Well, we want to save the money, and I think I like targeting this game, and he's the most affordable of those. Well, the most appropriately priced of the ones that have the higher floor. We can't afford Jamar Chase, so yeah, let's go with T. Higgins.
All right. So speaking of being economical, we're going to be economical at tight end, but let me just put a plug in for Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce here against Buffalo is worth every penny for the $8,200 price. We just can't afford him. And we prioritized people like Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp and the guy we have in our flex over Travis Kelce. But if you want to go that route, that's fine. Michael, is another tight end that's kind of up there in price that you like?
No, I mean, price-wise, well, yeah, so Travis Kelce is by far number one. I do think Kittle's ready to go off. I'm concerned that Green Bay has been strong against tight ends, and I'm concerned with the uses that they've had historically. But I think the Niners are going to have to get him involved if they're going to want to win this game. And so I just think it's time for him to show up big. But look what he's done the last 4 weeks. I think it's scary. I think it's 6,400. Let's go with someone who has maybe as high or higher of a floor who can save us even more money.
Yeah, it's amazing that Kittle's fallen behind Dawson Knox in the pricing, but like you said, you know it in the last 2 games. And I think game script's going to be a big one here. If San Francisco can control the game on the ground, then I think you're going to see Kittle do a whole lot of blocking. By the way, Michael, how many points you get for blocking? Can't remember.
Not enough.
FanDuel pricing. But if they can get behind and they're playing catch up, I think maybe he'll be turned more into a receiver. I don't want to take those chances, and we're going to allocate the money that we're going to save by elsewhere. So let's go down at only 4,500. I just have no interest in these other tight ends around that price. Cameron Brate. So I am not looking for a huge game for Cameron Brate, but I do want to reflect the situation that there is no Chris Godwin and there is no Antonio Brown. And you've got an offense led by Tom Brady that is going to put up points. And once again, I love guys on FanDuel who has a nose for the end zone. And they will look his direction in the end zone. I don't like I do not like the number of targets you're seeing that he's getting. I usually want more targets, but what can you expect for 4,500? I think that'll tick up a little bit, especially if Leonard Fournette, in addition to those big name wide receivers, are also out. So given the drop in price, I'm happy with Cameron Brate here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad that you started with the Kelsey comment. If you want to go the Kelsey route and you're willing to drop Adams out and go with a really inexpensive wide receiver in that spot, then that is the way to make that happen. But that's not what we chose to do here. We're gonna we wanted Adams in the lineup, and there's another guy that we're gonna get in the lineup because of the savings. And let's talk about that flex spot right now.
Oh, you want to talk about? Well, all right, we'll reveal, Michael. Who are we going to put in our flex position?
Well, you kind of alluded to it right when you were talking about Brate there, and that's the lack of options that Tom Brady has. And we saw that rear its head in the Tampa Bay game this last week, and Mike Evans was the beneficiary of that. And I think he will be again this week. I think the Rams will have a better ability than the Eagles did to maybe put some more blanket coverage on him, but he's such a big guy. He's such an important target. He's going to be involved heavily in this game. He just has to be, or the Bucs can't win.
Yeah, he leads the team in targets, in receiving yards, in receptions. And you see what he's done around the end zone. I feel like I'm repeating myself for all our guys, but they all have great touchdown equity. Tom Brady loves throwing in his direction in the end zone. So I want to put a caveat because I can tell some people might not like what we did. And one thing that we did is right now we have 3 Bucs in our lineup: a running back, a tight end, and a wide receiver. Well, first of all, I feel like we cornered the market on the 3 major weapons that they have on their team. And Bernard and Brate are so cheap, they don't have to have big games. So that's the thought process. Any other comments about Mike Evans and the issue that we have 3 Bucs?
No, I mean, you could still go Kelsey here, right? You could put Kelsey in that spot, spend the $400 extra and, go even lower on that flex spot and basically almost just kind of give up the spot. But we didn't want to do that. We thought Cameron Brate would account for something as opposed to having somebody who may not even get any touches.
Okay. Well, if you're wondering, will we, in our cast lineup, put another Tampa Bay player on the team at quarterback? No, the buck stops here. And it stops with, you know what? I think, Michael, I've joked that we have we're 2 members of the Deontay Johnson fan club. Well, Deontay Johnson is at home now. But I'd say a second place to a guy that both of us really like at quarterback. Who is it?
Mr. Joe Burrow. So we really like Joe Burrow. Obviously, he's rewarded us the last few weeks because of his the passing yardage that he's gotten. You've alluded to it already. Tennessee is much more prone to pass yards than they are against the run. That's what's going to happen in this game. This could be a shootout, right? I know Josh Allen is super tempting. He's huge with his legs the last couple of weeks. They were fantastic on offense, but the Pats didn't show up, and the Chiefs will. I think right now Chiefs are one of the better defenses. So I just feel like Joe Burrow at the extra savings is the guy to go with.
Look at the last 7 weeks, folks. I'm not going to tell you that Joe Burrow is going to be the highest scoring quarterback this week. But what I can tell you, in a cash game, he provides an excellent floor, especially given his price. So you talked about Josh Allen, and I'm going to throw in Pat Mahomes in there. Both of these guys, I think, are playing in the super high scoring game of the week. Both can hurt you in the air and on the ground, especially Josh Allen on the ground, but Mahomes can motor a little bit too. They're just we couldn't afford the extra price, the $800 and $1,100 more that Mahomes and Allen is. And as we say in our NFL DFS Master Class, given an option, pay down at quarterback. Paying up at quarterback is a luxury. It's not a necessity. So we needed that $1,000 and that $800. And I didn't want to sacrifice the wide receivers that we had. By the way, can I just repeat the wide receivers that we have, Michael? Kupp, Adams, and Evans. Oh, and throw T. Higgins in as well. Wow. And double wow. If we can just play the game correctly with juggling the running backs, getting the right running backs in there, given the situation, given the injury concerns, really happy with your lineup. It leaves $3,500 left. And there's not a whole lot of options at defense. We got a whopping 2 teams. And the team we're going to go with is the Buffalo Bills. Now, some of you guys are going to say, what are you doing? The Buffalo Bills are playing Kansas City. They're such a good offense. How can you do that? Okay, look, I don't need Buffalo to shut Kansas City down. I just need Buffalo to do what they've done most of the year, which is better than average defense at putting pressure on the quarterback. They force turnovers. Look what they've done in interceptions and fumble recoveries, which look at their fantasy football production. They have been giving you a nice floor in most matchups at a bargain basement $3,500 price.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing to note is the only other option was the Bengals. And the Bengals had some really tough injuries. I think that's what's one of the things that makes it to where they're a bigger dog in that game against Tennessee because of the injuries that they had. Otherwise, I could understand the temptation to go with Cincinnati.
And you guys might say, well, what about Green Bay? What about Tampa Bay? Again, these are defenses. We got that same $1,000. They're $1,000 more. And to be honest with you, if I had $1,000, I would have probably have allocated that at quarterback to get a Josh Allen and not at defense. So that's our cash lineup. Let's go to GPP. All right, Michael, here's our GPP lineup. And here's what we did. We said, let's attack the by far the highest scoring game, which is Kansas City and Buffalo. And I like taking the upside that Josh Allen gives you because he's so dangerous with his legs. I mean, the guy around the end zone will just take off at a moment's notice. And he's got a decent number of weapons in the passing game, one of which is Stephon Diggs. And we're going to run that back with, at a reasonably priced $8,200, Travis Kelce. What do you think about this stack?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about kind of all these guys to some extent, except for Diggs. The upside on them, right, is just so high. Diggs wasn't quite as involved in the New England game because he didn't have to be. Man, what a rough blowout. But his upside is still phenomenal. And we know Kelce, who did have a fantastic game this last week, has such high upside as well. And Josh Allen, what he did with his leg. So again, in GPP, you want to go with something that creates a little bit more upside. We also have McKinnon in the game, who we already talked to as well. So I think this is the game to attack. It's got the highest, over, or the highest point value expected.
Yeah, and looking at our 2 running backs, it's the same 2 running backs in cash game, but just like we said for cash, we need to monitor the injury news, and you very well may have to do some pivots based on the news. It's Jamar Chase, and when he goes off, he really goes off, as he did against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he scored 50 points.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that that's where Burrow is comfortable going with to when he's even just said it. Sometimes I just throw the ball up to Chase, and that is a luxury that he currently has, and Jamar Chase has not foiled him on that. So I really am confident in this as a GPP pick.
Yeah, we're just a little down on Mixon. We're more high on the Bengals passing game, because they face the Tennessee Titans who are so much better against the run than the pass. Michael, talk to us a little bit about Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, here's the other addition that we have, and you saw this last week, and they talked about it quite a bit if you were listening to the game, how he was just so excited to be in the playoffs that he felt like he was at kind of his tip-top prime spot, knew he was going to get involved. Again, Cooper Kupp was kind of getting blanketed, and so they got him involved early. They didn't need to get him involved later in the game just because of the game script that Arizona allowed them to have. That's not going to happen this week, right? That game is going to be close, no question in my mind. And I think Odell Beckham Jr. has a lot of upside because of how the Bucs will have to spread themselves thin across the wide receivers.
So the guy in our flex is a guy that we talked about as a pivot play, Cam Akers. As much as we don't like running backs against Tampa Bay has been a little bit looser. They used to be number 1. Now they're number 3 against the run. But looking at his performance last week, he looks like he's healthy and back to his old self.
Yeah, there's such a blessing for teams to have healthy, kind of untouched running backs. And you could totally tell that with Cam Akers this last week. If they get up on the Bucs, which they really very well could, Cam Akers is going to get a ton of touches. And so I think that creates for some really high potential upside.
Yeah, we're seeing in this lineup with a guy like Jerick McKinnon, with a guy like Cam Akers, that they're fresh. Where a lot of teams here late in the season are tired, they come in with really fresh legs. We were forced into the cheapest defense, and that was the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no question in my mind that this is a punt play. I am concerned about some of the injuries that Michael talked about. So that is our GPP lineup. Michael, we were originally going to do a live show this week. That, based on our schedule, needs to be delayed. I really think we have 8 really good teams here. And once again, maybe any of the 8 can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, right now, there are some odds-on favorites, but this is certainly, there were a few teams last week who didn't belong, and we saw that play itself out.
Pittsburgh.
Now I think we're down to the teams.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia, and then how about Arizona? And you could obviously say the Steelers as well. Some really tough games for those 3 teams.
Yeah.
All right. The Pats, who didn't show up at all. What happened?
Well, they got beat by a better team.
Well, that's
by Buffalo. So yeah, so we just lost a bunch of people in New England, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. All right, folks, thanks so much for your support. If you made it this far, don't forget to smash the like button. And if you haven't yet, hit the red subscriber button. We'll put up a couple of videos that we think you might enjoy. Check them out. And until next week, take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.